Welcome to Good Heart Connections, a podcast of Good Neighbors Canada, where we uncover inspiring story, share impactful insights, and connect hearts to make a better world. Join us as we meet extraordinary individuals, explore remarkable projects, and together, let's build a brighter future. Stay tuned for a dose of compassion and a world of good in every episode. For our third episode, we had the privilege to talk to Ms. Hyunhwa Yang, the manager of the Emergency Relief Operations of Good Neighbors Global Partnership Center. She's currently now in Morocco to spearhead the team to provide assistance to the victims of the calamity. For this episode, we'll deep dive into the stories of the emergency relief efforts we have during the Turkiye-Syria earthquake. For reference throughout this conversation, the staff of Good Neighbors International sometimes use shortened forms of frequent keywords. In this episode, you may hear Yang say GN, which stands for Good Neighbors, and you will also hear her referring to ER, which means to us emergency response. Hello, Yang, and welcome to Good Heart Connections. Just for the information of our audiences, this call is all the way from South Korea. And our guest for today is the Operations Manager of Good Neighbors Global Partnership Center, Ms. Hyunhwa Yang. It's a privilege to have you here on our podcast.
Thank you, Jenny. And then it's all good to see all of you. I'm Yang. I'm work as a emergency response coordinator from GN Global Partnership Center. It's really glad to be here together. Thank you.
We'll start off with you sharing about your journey in the international development field and how did you essentially become the operations manager of Good Neighbors Global Partnership Center?
Actually, I studied international law and human rights. From that moment, I really interested in how we can improve the human rights all over the world. And then especially for the refugee responses and then emergency responses, I really encountered to know more about it and then how I can be part of this society. And then I just joined Good Neighbors Global Partner Center since 2021 as an ER coordinator. And then from that time, I really engaged with all of the ER operation in Good Neighbors.
What do you believe are the essential elements that make charitable initiatives successful and impactful?
The most important thing is that really you need to believe there is an impact. Yeah, other sometimes people are doubting even if it's small money that I donate is really impactful or not, and then they're doubting if this organization is reliable to make these changes and then impact. But the thing is, most important thing is you need to believe that your initiative and then your donation and then your participation to the society is really impact. There is really impact. That is most important thing from point of my view. And then the other thing is you really need to believe you can make the changes with your all effort and you are interested with this partnership together with the good neighbors and another society.
Our listeners are interested about making a difference, such as you do, but they might not know where to start. What advice would you offer them who wants to get involved in charitable activities but are unsure where to begin?
It's I know it's really a little bit difficult, even though you have a little interest in about how you support them, but it's really difficult to start it with. But the important from my from my opinion, the most important thing is you have to have interested in the social news and the social participation, and then you also need to have interest in the person, especially who are in vulnerable circumstance. In the case, you can reach out to the community or organization which is really reliable and then work professionally, and then start with a small participation with them, and then see the possibility where you can go further or you can extend more your participation. So that is the most important thing. And then so you need to look around your community, whether there is any organization and then any community you can participate in together. I think that is most yeah, valuable thing. And then good step you can start you with your donation or your charity work.
Yeah, I get that a lot from one of our previous podcast guests that if you are financially capable to have first aid donation to your chosen charitable organization, or you can also volunteer from them.
That's correct.
So, aside from volunteering, collaboration often plays an important role in creating a meaningful change. So, how have partnerships and collaboration contributed to the success of our projects here at Good Neighbors?
Sometimes you cannot do everything in alone, right? Sometimes you need a partner and then you need a collaboration, because when you are operating certain mission, you need to know the local context very well, and then that's why partnership is very essential. Even though you are familiar with their sectors or other operation management, but if you don't know about the local circumstance or local context, your mission cannot be successful. That's why the partnership is a really important thing. And then on the other hand, the collaboration also very important, because that collaboration make us the successful implementation of the project. That's why we always emphasize partnership and then collaboration with other organization or other individual. It's because we are making the change all together, not by our own self. That's why we always say the partnership and the collaboration is most key element of the successful implementation of the project.
Can you share one story where we had partnership of certain organization and how it did made an impact or significant change of the project that we're working on?
I think I should share the listen our operation in the Turkey and the Syria, because as you know there was a devastating earthquake in the Syria and the Turkey, and then there was huge damage because of the earthquake. And at the moment, Good Neighbors itself, we don't have any country offices in either Turkey or northern part of the Syria. But then we find out the good partners we call like implementation partner, which is they can help us to implement our project on Syria and then Turkey. And then even though we didn't have any offices or human resource in by our own in Turkey and the Syria, but we ended up with have successful impact of the project. It's because we could find good partners in that country, and we can also collaborate with other organizations as well. That is the most key point. And then I just wanted to share one thing. As an organization, it's really difficult to reach out the northern part of the Syria, because it's not only about earthquake, but then there is also have a certain conflict in internal conflict. So it was difficult to reach out, but we ended up to find out a good organization who is already have the project in there, and they already rolling the project with the people, affected people in the northern Syria. And then one thing is we after just right after the earthquake, actually I arrived to Turkey in the second day of the earthquake, and then the impact was huge. And then I really hopeless. Actually, I am really hopeless that what we can do from here. But we found that a good partners, and then we mobilized the mobile education center. That means that every buses can reach out to the children who didn't have any space to safe, and then any spaces for study or feeling safe. So we provided education and the psychosocial support with the children, and then children say that, after the earthquake, they were so afraid of the another shocks, and then they were afraid of the staying in a camp, which is don't know much about the people around them. But then, because of this mobile education buses, they when they come to the buses, they feel relief, and then they are making the friends, and then they a little bit get rid of the impact, get rid of the shocks from the earthquake. So most of the children really feel safe. That is most one of the touching moment that I felt, because you know what, the young children, if they are in a unusual circumstance, they really feel afraid, and then it was really good that we can at least help them to accommodate them in the safe place, and when they are feel free to speak out, and then when they are make the friends, and then that is the most I mean, from my personal opinion, that is the most touching moment for me.
So, our podcast aims to highlight both local and global challenges. So, in your opinion, what are some of the most important social issues that we should be addressing right now?
I think many of you already know that, but climate change is most yeah, important thing from my point of view, because climate change related with the all inequality in our worldwide circumstance. So every time when I encounter with a certain disaster, because as you know, I'm the emergency response coordinator. Most of the disaster caused by climate change or other changes because of the climate environment change. So from my point of view, climate change is really important, and then there is a certain things caused by climate change. Climate change itself is not only about the environment or nature, it's also related with the social inequality and the poverty. That's why we need to emphasize, and we need to figure it out how we can participate to participate to make some changes related to the. We cannot say we can prevent the climate change, but we can also mitigate, or we can adaptate uh, the climate change, and then make people to have a more better life than before. That is the most important thing, I guess. So we can address these issues more often, and then more importantly.
So, could you also share us what are the projects or programs of Good Neighbors that are related to climate change, and what are the particular programs that we have at the moment?
Actually, as a good neighbors, as a good organization, we have 43 different country offices all around the world. And then most of the countries are facing in the difficulties of the climate change. So there is a lot of project rolling in different areas. For example, we really emphasize the agriculture, how they can adapt this climate change and then produce better yield from the farmer. And then we also have a education sector that we educate the children how we can adapt it this climate change, and how we can mitigate this circumstance. And also in another African continent, we also have a project to make the charcoal briquette, which is people can use as a resources for their fuel instead of using the trees. Those type of the project we are also have it, and there are a lot more that we are a lot more projects that I already explained. So you can probably check more newses and then a publication that we produce, and then probably you will figure it out what projects Good Neighbors is doing related with the climate changes.
Lastly, as we end our conversation, what message would you like to share to our listeners to encourage them to take steps towards creating a more connected and more compassionate world?
First of all, if you sing this podcast, that is the good start. Because if you don't have any interest in connecting to the other society or helping or supporting other person, you will not see this podcast. So it's a really good start point that you are subscribing or watching this podcast of the Good Neighbors Canada. That is the number one. And then the second important thing is not just listening or uh, not just subscribing those articles or newses, but more important thing is you need to participate with your own way. Either, as we mentioned earlier, either you can do the volunteer work or you can donate your cash. It's not important which way, but the more important thing how you participate. That is the most important thing. And then from my point of view, as only I mentioned earlier, most important thing that you need to believe you can make the changes, and that you are the person who can connect to others and support them, and then they will also support you in the different ways. It's not only you support them, but also some different ways and then some different method, and they will also support you. That's how this community we call like Earth, or we can like global community works. And then that's why we are also as a NGO worker, we are working with that way, because we are not only here support them, we are also getting support from them. So to realize that way is more important thing from my point of view. So thank you, the listener, yeah, to start to have interest in the what Good Neighbors Canada are doing, and then what Good Neighbors doing in the globally, and then hope you can have more interested in participating our works, and then you can also support to other people.
Thank you, Yang. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and your professional background. Like, how did a human rights lawyer become the Good Neighbors operations manager, emergency relief response? So, again, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you.